You're listening to 91.7 FM, WSUW, in Whitewater, Wisconsin. You're listening to WSUW 91.7 FM in Whitewater, Wisconsin, The Edge. This is Rashkin Report, and I'm your host, Yuri Rashkin. Today, my guest is financial and political news analyst, currently in St. Petersburg, Russia, Slava Rabinovich. Slava, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Yuri.
Well, there's been lots of events going on, and Russia is certainly in the news on seemingly hourly basis, but perhaps daily. What is your opinion on the relationship between President Trump and Russia? Do you feel that this is something that there was indeed collusion, and therefore President should be punished, or do you feel there was no collusion? I mean, obviously, neither one of us was there, listening to the phone lines, but from the information that you're seeing, your impression of the situation?
Yuri, it seems to be that there was quite a bit of collusion, and whether it was criminal or on the borderline or non-criminal, that is yet to be find out. And I believe that U.S. As a state has all necessary mechanisms to actually get to the bottom of it in a democratic and due legal process. However, because Russia did what it did, whether it's more of a propaganda or a fairy tale or a reality, regardless of the degree and of the exactly what happened, regardless of that, there is a worldwide perception, and even a humorous hashtag, the Russians did it. So because you have all this perception, then the light is on Donald Trump all the time in this context of whether he is an agent of the Kremlin, and if he is, then whether he is controlled or not so controlled agent. And regardless of all of these questions and answers, there is a perception, and this perception cannot be undone. And Kremlin actually served itself a counterproductive kind of action leading towards a complete failure in its initial goals, because whether Trump goes along with what Putin wants, for example, some sort of a negotiation and a deal over Ukraine, some sort of a recognition or semi-recognition of the annexation of Crimea, a relaxation or complete abolishment of all sanctions related to Ukrainian situation, and also some relaxation or abolishment of everything related to the Magnitsky Act. All of these potential actions of Trump would paint him in a very, very, very bright red paint of the Kremlin's controlled agent.
Well, he's already pretty orange.
Yes, and because of this, he is running along the corridor which actually gets narrower and narrower, and he cannot do anything about it. And from the Putin's and the Kremlin's point of view, that must be really frustrating, because they themselves got themselves into a corner where they know that Trump cannot do anything. In fact, he is able to do much less than in a different situation if there wasn't any kind of perception in the world that Russia got involved into the U.S. elections. So from this standpoint, I believe that Trump, he's not walking any kind of tightrope. No, he's off that path altogether. If he does something that the establishment and the general public would deem as playing along with the criminal actions of the Kremlin, then it's a straight path to the impeachment. And in terms of the impeachment itself, that is a situation that is yet to be played out, because it is certain that the way Trump got to the presidency, it is absolutely certain that there are so many interested parties in the U.S. that would like to take him down, that the preparation process for his impeachment process has started on the day of his inauguration. Whether it may materialize is an open, very, very open question, and it has the circumstances that may or may not lead to this process. It is difficult to analyze right now because there are so many moving parts. But Trump himself knows everything about it. And I believe it is very unlikely that he is going to undertake anything stupid that may lead into this direction. And if I were him, I would have explained this to Putin. Vladimir, my friend, you see, if I'll do this or I'll do that, I won't be able to achieve that. I will be blocked by the Congress and by the Senate and whatever. And in addition to that, I will be impeached. So I believe that by now everybody understands the current situation, except for, of course, the general Russian public, which is being fed complete nonsense from the Russian state television and with this propaganda. But it's irrelevant what the Russian public thinks or believes in. What is relevant is the real situation, and I believe the real situation is that Trump cannot do anything in relation to helping Putin in any kind of a way.
Slava, what has been the reaction in Russia to Oliver Stone and his new project of his interviews with Vladimir Putin? Is this something do people like Oliver Stone? Is he well-known director in Russia as well? I mean, your thoughts?
Oliver Stone is relatively well known in Russia because historically the Russian public has been very prone to anything from Hollywood and anything from not only mainstream Hollywood but also from the likes of Oliver Stone, which may be non-mainstream one way or another. Russians do love conspiracy theories, and they also watch Oscars, and they understand who Oliver Stone is. The problem with this multi-series film is that there is nothing there which the Russian public doesn't know. The thing is that the West and the Western public is not following Russian state television propaganda, but the Russians do. And the movie is actually made more to the tune of the Russian state television propaganda rather than some sort of a different cinematographic masterpiece of an Oscar-winning film director. And if some people in the West were surprised, puzzled, or even shocked, or in one way or another took interest in that, and I don't believe that it was viewed by a huge number of viewers, then in Russia it is like, oh yeah, that's another thing that we already saw. It's just like a continuation of everything that has been fed to the Russians for many, many years in a row, and especially within the last 3 years. So I believe that it's just, okay, more of the same, not too much. And in addition to that, there is a whole scope of misinformation, misleading, changing of topics in a demagogical way, and even lies, especially which have been recently uncovered by journalists when they saw that the footage of, as Putin said, Russians fighting against ISIS in Syria. And he showed this on his telephone to Oliver Stone, and it turned out to be a complete fake. And then, obviously, the general public, which is brainwashed, they just see it as yet another more of the same kind of a thing, and those people who understand the propaganda and they don't watch propaganda, they just laugh at how Oliver Stone actually was able to compile into this series all of this nonsense, show it in the West and show it in the East, and how Putin looks in the same exact way as Facebook using public analyzes and depicts him, and even more in a more funny way when there is a complete and open lie which is immediately uncovered, and lie about this and lie about that, and this movie is full of lies. So I think that it's not a huge impact or any kind of impact in terms of showing this film on the Russian TV. And moreover, I believe that it doesn't have a high rating. The population of Moscow is what, like 15 million people, and I read just recently that the first part which was viewed was about, there were like 1.5 or 2 million people only saw, which is like 10% of the population of Moscow. So it's like nothing.
Slava, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about the impact of young people on politics in Russia these days. We see a lot of in the latest series of protests, which have last 2-3 months, a lot more young people have appeared than has been active previously, and this seems to become quite as a surprise to people.
Yes, the high school students and university students, college students, they appear to be this recently uncovered generation of people and in fact of voters, which was flying well below radar, at least Kremlin's radar, and in fact the whole television propaganda machine radar. It seems like all Russian propagandists and propaganda television showmen and all the Russian channels on this propaganda television, they actually are not viewed by these people. It does not affect them at all because they just don't watch television altogether. And they are appalled by the prospects in their personal and professional lives. The Russian education system is destroyed. Their educational and professional skills are very, very low on the global scale. They also see the nepotism and corruption around them. They understand that if they're not a son or a daughter of some Kremlin bigwig, or at least somebody from the families of 1,000 families, or maybe even 5 or 10,000 families closer to this Kremlin machine, then they have no chances. They also saw their economic situation of their households falling like a rock over the last 3 years. They also had, some of them had hopes of studying in the West, in Europe or elsewhere, and these hopes are dashed by a collapsed financial and economic situation of their families. So this generation is a generation of no hope, and they got to realize that. They are also a generation for which the Facebook is too much of an ancient invention, and they rather organize themselves. They unite via different channels of communications, including Telegram channels, YouTube channels, other coded messenger channels. They all got smartphones, and these are not necessarily iPhones or Samsungs if it's too expensive for them, but they are able to buy some very, very cheap Chinese equivalents, and all they need is to have a mobile internet and access from their handheld device to get into these communication channels. And all of this really gave rise to, seems like millions of young people, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist in order to understand that we are talking about the most politically active, perhaps, and most fearless part of the society, which led to revolutions in many countries around the world over the last 30 to 40 years, not necessarily the likes of Arab Spring, but revolutions over the several last decades, and in fact, perhaps somebody can argue that over centuries. So this is an extremely important development in the Russian political scene, and such opposition politicians as Alexei Navalny figured that out early, and they got the key. They got understanding how to get these people on board onto to their, or in case of Navalny in singular, into his political platform as followers and supporters. And he is appealing to them by their own means, by his own YouTube channel with his basically YouTube television channel. I think that the Kremlin is not capable of understanding all of that. And whenever they will be coming to some understanding of something in this regard, they will always be behind the curve. They will always be behind by not even one step, but by two steps. And that's why the current Kremlin clique is actually doomed. We don't know when and how the regime change will happen, but we know that they cannot stop time, and the new generation of Russians is actually a good proof of that, and I'm certain that it will be the proof in the future, and this is exactly what would happen, how the regime will be changed, driven out by time and by the change in the Russian political class, where these young people will become active and they will do something about this regime.
You're listening to Rashkin Report. This is Yuri Rashkin, and my guest today was news and financial analyst Slava Rabinovich, joining us via Skype from St. Petersburg to talk to us about the latest developments in Russia. And Slava, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to continuing this conversation in the future.
Thank you, Yuri. Just to add, it was not St. Petersburg, Florida. It is St. Petersburg, Russia.
Indeed. Important difference indeed. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
You're listening to Rashkin Report.